To be mindful of time, we're going to get started. So before we kick off today, I just want to welcome everyone back. For those of you who were here yesterday when we launched the Climate Pod focusing on water. And for people who are just joining us today, welcome. Yesterday, we had two great discussions with Katie Patrick and Stephanie Smith, thinking through how do we make environmental change fun and almost like a game, as well as really thinking about how water and climate change intersect and are connected, and through the lens of our personal journeys. So today we're going to have a great panel. We have three panels today, and I'm thrilled to kick off our first panel in partnership with the Protect Our Planet movement. And before I turn it over to my amazing colleague, Dr. Ash, I'll just give a brief introduction. Dr. Ash Pachari has a PhD in decision-making and master's degree in international management, having worked with McKinsey & Company before pursuing a career in social development. Dr. Pachari's experience in the fields of public health and management emerges from a really wide range of programs and initiatives across the world. So we're so grateful, and he's a gracious and an amazing human being. And we're really grateful to Dr. Ash for partnering with FXB Climate Advocates and helping us to facilitate this incredible panel today, where we'll hear from 7 young people about their water projects. So Dr. Ash, I turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Karina. I just want to say that, we're deeply grateful for this incredible opportunity, and my heartiest congratulations for your phenomenal leadership and through the climate pods. I mean, you've really been able to touch on probably the most important areas on the issues that are probably topmost in terms of those we wish to address, and we are very grateful to be able to join you here today and warmly welcome our panelists. Thank you very much again, Karina, and many thanks to FXB-USA for this invaluable opportunity. So a warm welcome to all our panelists. I know Nitya, want to say a big thank you to you for hosting our conversation, and we're delighted to have this opportunity. So thank you so much, Nitya, and we are thrilled to hear you speak with us after this and walk us through the next steps. So I'll hand over to Nitya at this stage. And with that, I'd also like to convey my deepest thanks to each one of you for making the time, for sharing your expertise, for the incredible POP family for making this happen. So thanking each one of you, and Nitya, over to you.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Ash. I would just like to say a very warm welcome to our online event, Climate Pods. And I'm going to be starting off by introducing the Climate Pods. So a Climate Pod is a space where individuals can reflect and unpack their own climate narrative while connecting with others to reimagine and retell a collective vision for the changing world around us. A virtual initiative organized by FXB-USA, Climate Advocates, POP Movement, and youth climate leaders in the month of July and August 2020. Focusing on the themes Livable Cities, Water, Food and Fashion, this informative training program seeks to employ narrative and storytelling practices along with special guest talks from thought and action leaders to reimagine and personalize key themes of the climate crisis. As great leaders and inspiration to the youth of the world, we have the pleasure to invite 6 young water activists from different countries to speak at the Climate Pod on Water. The POP movement with FXB-USA will hold a panel discussion on youth water activists. What tools do young people need to take action? Where the young leaders will share their narrative and experience of water-related activism in an attempt to inspire and motivate the young audience towards the cause of water. We would sincerely appreciate if the audience drop any questions or comments they have in the chat box. And I would also request everyone to mute themselves at all times. And if you do wish to share or communicate with anybody, please do so in the chat box. We'll also be dropping our social media handles in the chat box, and we are currently live on Facebook. I would like to begin now by saying we have with us here today Daniela Gomez, Jamila Saley, Hazik Kazi, Joni Higgs, Anna Hanhausen, and Luciana Vestuki, who will each have 5 to 7 minutes to present their stories. I would now like to introduce our first speaker, Daniela Gomez. Daniela recently graduated from Universidad de las Americas Puebla with an honors degree in biology. She is a member of the Royal Society of Biology and since 2015 has been collaborating with leading nonprofit organizations in nature conservancy. Although she has focused most of her work in terrestrial ecosystems, Daniela has a special interest in ocean conservancy. During an academic exchange to the University of Queensland, Australia, she learned about climate science and the huge role played by oceans as climate buffers, which led her to become an ocean advocate and to collaborate in mangrove reforestation programs in Veracruz and the POP Ocean Initiative. We welcome you.
Thank you so much for having me. Okay, so I'll start by sharing my story. I think some of you may be expecting to hear a story of how there was a turning point in my life that made me decide to become an advocate for nature conservancy, but that really isn't my story. My story is quite ordinary, and hopefully some of you will identify and feel motivated to act. So my passion for the environment started when I was fairly little. While most of my friends were inside playing with toys, I found myself outside exploring my garden and like befriending whichever animal or insect I saw. So growing up, I really never truly understood the reality of the climate crisis because like so many others, I went through life with a point of view that was clouded by my privilege. I trusted that when I turned on the faucet, water was going to run uninterrupted, or that I could count on having 3 meals a day and enjoying whatever food I was in the mood for, regardless of the season. So a little bit later, after learning just how complex the ecological crisis truly was, and calculating my personal ecological footprint, I entered a season of despair. So bear with me. I was filled with impotence that actually turned into apathy because I thought there wasn't really anything we could do or I could do to avoid the consequences of such a climate crisis. And well, I was really lucky that I had the support of my family and like-minded people that helped me catalyze this preoccupation into, well, thinking that more than being just trapped in the category of perpetrators, we were the only solution, right? So this made me more mindful and more conscious. So I tried to keep myself informed about the environmental problems, and I started making small changes in my life. Later, I decided to approach bigger climate movements. And to my surprise, super unexpected, the actions that I was taking were actually influencing my family to take actions themselves, right? So it was really amazing to see that, and it made me extremely happy. But nonetheless, I still felt that there was something missing in our quest to, in my quest to battle climate change. So an idea popped up and I decided to start a project to create a digital platform for climate action. So what we plan to do is dissect the problematic of climate action, which is very complex, and into subcategories, and make it easy for people to take action in different impact levels. So at the moment, we are actually composed of a very small team, but I have so much faith in this project, and I think it will help other people become environmental activists. So no idea is too small. So now that I told you a little bit about myself, I would like to address the topic of this panel, which is water crisis. My interest in water conservation came a little bit later in life, as my biography kind of just said, I was mostly engaged in terrestrial ecosystems and focused solely on that, right? So even I really never gave water a second thought. Sadly, I felt really certain that whatever discomforts I might find in life regarding water were temporary. While I studied biology, for example, we went on some field trips and we faced some discomforts, such as not being able to shower for several days, or that some places we went to didn't really have washrooms. But I always knew that I was going to come back to my safe, uninterrupted water supply. This wasn't true. I then started reading news of how South Africa was facing its day zero, which for those who don't know, it's a determined date when people start receiving their waters in rations, because the city is facing a major water stress. So it made me wonder, all of the cities of the world were gonna have their day zero, and Mexico could run out of water really, really, really soon. So yeah, water, it was a resource that I definitely took for granted. And I want to ask yourselves how many times you have taken it for granted, because you might find that it has been a lot of times. So I started to inform myself more on the problematic, right? So for those of you who are unaware or just tuning in to this climate pod, I want to tell you a little bit of the crisis. Earth has been referred to by many as the blue planet because of the high abundance of water, either in liquid, vapor, or solid form. Despite having over 1 trillion gallons of water, 97% of it has high concentrations of salt, which makes it unfit for human consumption. Of the remaining 3%, 2% is trapped in ice, and only 1% is available for consumption, but not all of it is easily accessible. We mostly rely on freshwater ecosystems like rivers and lakes. The water held in aquifers is harder to access, but we have been getting really good at it. Still, it is depleting, and freshwater ecosystems are facing a major, major stress. So besides, we need to take into account that global agriculture and food security depend on water. In fact, agriculture consumes around 70% of the global freshwater supplies, and it is estimated that this will grow with growing populations and demand for food. So besides its use in agriculture, people need this resource to survive. Industries need it to cool down its processes. So literally, everything you see, wear, use, or eat needs water in some form. Yeah, so access to this resource is not fairly distributed throughout the globe. It really depends on so many factors. It depends on your country of residence. It depends on your socioeconomic level, in the location within your country of residence. And although it is treated as a public resource and as a key to development, freshwater ecosystems face so much stress, such as they are directly impacted by environmental changes, such as climate change, nitrogen deposition, shifts in precipitation and runoff patterns, but they're also directly impacted by human-induced threats, such as modification of river systems, wetlands, water withdrawals, pollution, and so many others. And these factors, they magnify, well, they interact and they magnify the effects that they have on the freshwater ecosystem. So we are in for a really big challenge ahead of us. Okay, so to put it simply, we are facing this really, really tremendous challenge. And the reality is that we cannot live without water. And the water crisis is largely due to poor and inadequate water management. At least in Mexico City, we lose around 1,500 gallons or 6,000 liters, whatever you choose, per second due to a poor quality infrastructure to get the water to the city, right? So we have so much of it, but we really we're really bad at managing it. And it is so essential. So the human race is faced with a great paradox, or the way that I see it. We continue to ignore the impending threat of a global water crisis, despite understanding that it is the most essential resource for human existence. So I find it insane. Okay, so just to wrap up, some people believe that in the saying that ignorance is bliss, but I disagree completely. We all have a role to play in this global water crisis, and it is not fair that we decide to go through life without taking responsibility of our water consumption, both at a personal and a professional level. We must educate ourselves, we must innovate, and together we must collaborate to ensure our own survival, quite literally. So deciding to take responsibility for ourselves is a brave and urgent thing. Taking action is really contagious, and it might take you on an emotional ride, like it did with me, but I urge each and every one of you to catalyze it and to find solutions. And if you don't, then create them. I mean, what is there to lose? Okay, that would be all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daniela. That was really inspiring. I would now like to move on to the next speaker. We have with us Jamila Saley. Jamila is an environmental advocate and educator. She currently works at Barbados Ministry of Natural Beautification as an assistant project coordinator in the Biodiversity and Conservation Management Program. She studied natural resources and environment management at the undergraduate and postgraduate level at the University of West Indies. During her MSc, she chose climate change as her focus, where she learned about climate science, current trends, and policy. She was a regional chairperson of the Caribbean Youth Environment Network from 2014 to 2019, and since joining CYEN, she has focused on the field of climate change through various activities like managing worldwide views, consultation on climate and energy, participating in the Action 2015 and 1.5 to Stay Alive campaigns. Assisting in writing statements for Caribbean youth, she was given the Queen's Young Leader Award for her environmental advocacy and education. We welcome you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. So again, I'm Jamila Saley. I'm from Barbados, which is in the Caribbean, if you don't know. It's a very small island. It's like a dot if you look on the world map. So you may not see it. Okay, so growing up in Barbados, I grew up in the countryside, very rural area. We had a few livestock and a small garden, and I spent most of my time when I was very young outside. I love to be up in the trees. We spent like the entire day, me and my cousins and some neighborhood children, spent the entire day outside, especially in summer vacations. Couldn't wait to be outside. Our parents weren't even really looking for us. We just spent the entire day outside, walking around, picking fruits for food. And it was just really fun. I would enjoy most of my time at the beach on Sundays. It's the best time ever. I love the beach. And with my uncles, we went on the back of his pickup truck when it was legal, of course. And I spent most of my time playing in sand and water, running along the beach, playing tag and stuff like that. And my favorite thing was to collect sea fans, shells, and some interesting rocks. So when I was about 11, I went to secondary school, and I was introduced to geography, which is my best subject. I was introduced to the World Atlas, and from then I planned to travel the world. I just wanted to travel to all these exotic places. But before, I'd been traveling since I was about 3 years old to New York because I have a lot of family there. And then I visited like one Caribbean island, but I really wanted to get on the airplane and just travel everywhere, especially to like see the Alps, go to every continent, maybe except for Antarctica because it'll be a bit too cold for me. So naturally, I'm a very curious person, especially in nature. I want to know what is really going on, how do things work? So then around 15, I participated in my first beach cleanup. And for someone living on the beach, it was interesting seeing what we found. And if we could fast forward to years later, I ended up in the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, and I actually helped to coordinate beach cleanups. And it's basically everything that is made, that man makes, can be found on the beach. It is ridiculous. So that's something that made me really want to study environmental management. So just from then, if I could go back a bit to when I was in sixth form, I had to decide what subjects I'm going to study, what plan am I going to have for my life. And the only plan I had was to study environmental science, geography, and biology. That's just the things I had to study. And then when I had to pick a subject for university, I chose environmental science. Some persons were saying it's more practical to study medicine, but I was like, I have to study environmental management, even though I may not get a job and I go back home. It's something that I love, and I don't want to be stuck studying something that I don't like, even though it could be very profitable. So at 18 years old, I left home. I spent 3 years in another island in the Caribbean called Trinidad. And I really enjoyed learning about environment, especially learning about the environment in Trinidad. And then when I came back here, of course, there was no job in environmental management. I applied so many places and got so many rejection letters, but I ended up teaching geography, just like that. And at first I thought it was just to pay back my student loan, but really I enjoyed passing on my knowledge to children. And that's where my love for education happened. My mother's also a teacher, but she actually encouraged me not to teach because of all the stress, and it doesn't pay as well as she would like. But I really loved it. So I ended up teaching off and on between like 2010 up to 2018. And in between there, I did my master's degree because I realized that a lot of people have undergraduate degrees here. So you need to be on top of your game. So you have to do a master's degree. So I chose climate change. A professor at my last university said climate change is something that I should go into. So I chose it and I loved it. I love learning climate science. And I think it was something that is something urgent that we should be working on, especially being an island. We have some devastating impacts that can happen. That we can't go and move to anywhere. There's nowhere else for us to move. So we have to try to adapt to climate change impacts. So in between there, I joined the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. That was in 2013. And I was introduced to the SIDS process, which is the Small Island Developing States process. And my brain just kind of exploded, just learning all the stuff that's going on in the world and how can me, this one person, do something to change. From then on, I ended up doing exhibitions, meeting young people from around the world, doing the same thing that I'm doing, which is the best thing ever for me, is to see that people, especially people that are like teenagers, I was around 25 at the time. So it was amazing seeing people so young doing something so big and are so bold and pushing their advocacy, whatever subject they're doing. It was amazing to experience these kind of things. So regards to water, Barbados is a water scarce country. We have groundwater resources, and with climate change, it's expected to have less water, and we depend on rainfall. So there are some areas in Barbados that don't have access to, I would say, adequate running water. There was maybe a year or two ago, 6 months, they didn't have access to running water, which was devastating for them. But for me, I turn on my tap and I get water every day. So it's something that definitely needs to be worked on. They're thinking of doing desalination now. This is an issue that's happening right now. But I think a lot of people are complacent. So back then, years ago, when I was talking to people about climate change, I found it was hard to tell people about something that they can't see happening. People wouldn't believe you. They were like, oh, that's something that's not my problem. That somebody else has to deal with that. But really and truly, all of us have to work together. If like 20 people out of 20,000 are doing the right thing and the other people are doing the wrong thing, it's going to make it worse for everybody. So I realized that everyone has to work together, especially on this little island. We only have about 300,000 people on 166 square miles. So we definitely need to work together. And the environment now seems to be a very like hyped subject right now. So people, like before, media wouldn't come to some events that we had unless we had like a minister there. But all of a sudden they're calling us to ask for our opinion. I was like, whoa, you're asking for our opinion now, like young people. It was amazing how it has changed. So now that they're listening, I say we have to have a bigger voice. And this is not just in my island, all the islands across the world. All young people should be talking to the governments. Don't be shy. Just make sure you have a plan. Make sure you know how it works in terms of policy. Learn those things. Learn how negotiations work, especially at UN conferences that your country is a party to. And which is the thing that I think is the most important, is to do things on the ground. So while you're advocating for policy changes and all that, make sure that you are actually doing things, and every little action counts. So even if you...
Jamila, sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, so that was my last thing, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jamila. Next, we have with us Haziq Qazi. Haziq is 14 years old and is currently studying in grade 9 in Indus International School, Pune. Haziq is passionate about the oceans and tackling the plastic problem afflicting oceans and marine life. At the age of 11, he was invited to TED Ed Talk in New York to talk about his invention, Orvis the ship, which is designed to clean oceans with an aim to solve the plastic waste crisis problem. He has spoken on multiple other forums to raise awareness on the danger of plastic pollution. Haziq is also working towards creating his awareness campaign and has established an NGO, the Orvis Foundation, wherein he is working with the youth of today to bring a generational change in the way they interact with plastic. Haziq is currently the regional focal point for SDG 14, Youth Constituency for United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth. He was recently nominated to present his statement on behalf of UNMGCY at the 2020 United Nations session of High Level Political Forum. We welcome you, Haziq.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all keeping safe. So if plastic would have been killing the same amount of humans as birds and marine life, did you know that it would be among the top 10 killers in the world with over 1 million deaths annually? What makes these deaths even more tragic is the manner in which they happen. Once the marine animals and birds consume plastic, they're not able to get it out of the system, because of which they're not able to eat anything else, leading to a slow and painful death. Hello, everyone. My name is Haziq Qazi, and I am the inventor of Orvis the ship and the co-founder of the Orvis Foundation. Thank you so much for inviting me to join this exciting panel discussion today. So the plastic waste crisis has reached a critical point wherein, if unchecked, it will be projected that we will have more plastic in the ocean than fish by 2050. My interest in combating the plastic waste crisis began 4 years back when I watched a documentary on the impact of plastic on marine life. In a manner, it profoundly affected me. It disturbed me to a level where I thought I had to do something about it. And that inspired me to design a ship called Ervis. Ervis represents a hope for marine life, a futuristic clean energy ship which sucks waste from the ocean's surface and cleans it. So one day, our school announced a local TED Ed chapter where we could talk about a problem that was close to our hearts. I chose the topic of marine pollution and how I see Ervis addressing it. Subsequently, I went on with my life post the presentation until 1 year later, when I was fortunate enough to have my idea shortlisted to be presented at the TED headquarters in New York. I worked closely with scientists, researchers, engineers, just to do more research on the plastic waste problem, the ship design, and how I could make a more engaging conversation with the audience. So finally, I did get my chance to go on stage on 17th June 2017, where I spoke for 11 minutes. Those 11 minutes changed my life and took me on a journey of self-realization, change, and purpose. I went digging deeper into the problem, and I realized that plastic has had a catastrophic impact on not just our oceans, but just so many other parts of our ecosystem, to the point where the damage could be irreversible. And all of this in just the last half a century. Today, plastic has made its way into every part of our biodiversity, even to the most remote corners of the Arctic. And that is concerning. The need for convenient living has taken over our conscious living, which needs to change. Nations can no longer put people, planet, and natural resources on the backseat and give a front seat to profit. For the betterment of humanity, the environment needs to be prioritized whether or not it reaps profit. Even the youth cannot afford to remain casual and irresponsible anymore like our earlier generations. We have to work hard and work tirelessly to ensure that they have a safer, healthier, and a longer future ahead of them, where they don't have to fight and struggle for basic sustenance and right to essential resources like clean water. In order to advocate a generational change, I decided to establish my foundation. At the Ervis Foundation, we intend to equip the youth with all the necessary tools that will develop them to be socially responsible and sensitive. This calls for intensive capacity building and also for schools to take their curriculums beyond academic learning. Students need to be instilled with added skills like soft skills, problem solving, science and innovation, design thinking, and much, much more. Even circular economy can be inculcated as a part of university and college curriculum. We also have midterm goals of establishing a zero waste marketplace to provide sustainable alternatives to plastic products like bamboo toothbrushes, copper water bottles, for consumers to make a more conscious choice on their lifestyle. We have also created an app to measure the plastic debt of individuals. Our long-term goal is to incubate moonshot projects like Ervis the ship and make it a reality, manning the oceans and restoring the natural habitat of our marine life. We've also been working closely with the United Nations Environmental Program by promoting the cause of the oceans, specifically focusing on Sustainable Development Goal number 14 at various forums. So just to conclude, The plastic waste crisis, which arguably represents one of the biggest man-made crises affecting our marine ecosystems, also represents an equally big opportunity for my generation to work on it and reverse the damage. So the greatest barrier to progress is not the lack of solutions, rather our love for models that have proven insufficient in the face of current realities. So no matter who we are or where we come from, like every single individual has on this planet, they have the capacity to contribute and support one another in achieving the future we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hasi. Next, we have Joni Higgs. She is a 14-year-old Bahamian who lives on a 2 by 5 mile long island in the Bahamas named Hopetown. She is in 9th grade and her interests are music, reading, swimming, boating, and sailing. She has been interested in the environment from an early age, as has been part of many eco clubs since then. We welcome you, Joni.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Joni Higgs, and I'm going to be discussing my story and my experience in water-related activism, specifically on my island. I live on a small 2 by 5 mile long island in the Bahamas. Our island does not have any natural fresh water, such as lakes, rivers, or even freshwater lens underground. We depend on rainwater as our main supply of water. We drink this water, we wash dishes, and we bathe with it. We collect rainwater through gutters that are attached to the sides of a roof and are almost like slides that collect and pour the water down a pipe into the tanks where it is stored. Every home on the island, which is close to about 600, are built with rain gutters and storage tanks. However, it can be a struggle depending on rain, as we run low on water sometimes when there's not much of it. In this case, we have to buy water. A water truck is then sent to our house with a hose that fills up our tank. They produce this water through the process of desalination. They have to dig wells into the ground to extract salt water, which is then high pressure filtered into fresh water. Buying water can be expensive because of the process it takes. We depend on rainwater as is an easier source. But here we have to be very conservative of our use of water. When I was in primary school, we became one of the first schools to become an eco school in the Bahamas. While we did many environmental practices, we always faced a water usage problem. We would run out of water. In a school with many kids, this can be very difficult as we needed to wash hands, to flush toilets, and to drink. We then came up with many different ways to conserve our water better. This included collecting water in a barrel from our AC unit. This water was not safe to drink, so we used it to water our school's garden instead of letting it go to waste. We used rocks in our toilet tanks to displace and reduce the amount of water used when flushed. We also cut our drain pipes and piped them to grass areas on the campus to help them stay green. All of these efforts help conserve our usage of water. This allowed us to have more drinking water. It was very inspiring to me and made me want to practice the same at home and get others involved. From a very young age, I was taught about the importance of water conservation. This included taking shorter showers and turning off the water when brushing my teeth or washing dishes. When I started high school, I became involved in the Eco Club there and further developed my knowledge on the importance of water activism. Water collection around the world is a vital topic because we depend on water to live. It's important to understand the environment that you live in so you can seek the best way to acquire water. While desalination is a way that we can access water, it can be expensive and may not work in different regions of the world. It depends on electricity and burns fossil fuels, which then adds to the growing climate concern. Where I live, collecting rainwater is a sustainable and affordable way of getting drinkable water. The only continued cost is maintenance, such as filters, pipes, gutters, and repairs. However, not all islands in the Bahamas depend on collecting rainwater. On larger islands, they can dig wells to have fresh water. The two most important things that I've learned are that we need to be conservative because our water can run out, and we need to keep our environment clean so that our drinking water is safe. I've participated with local and international NGOs that help educate the youth about the importance of water conservation, as well as keeping the environment clean. I was taught ways I can reduce pollution that can harm our water supply, and in turn, I have worked with younger kids to help them understand as well. My activism is education and conservation through environmentally sustainable practices. I will continue in my ways, and I will strive to educate others about the importance of water. Water is a basic necessity that we need to live and survive, and it's important that we conserve it. I hope my story about water on my island has inspired you all to either begin or continue with your own water activism. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. That was really inspiring. Next, we have with us Anna Hanhausen. Anna holds a chemical engineering degree from Mexico City's Ibero-American University. Since 2018, she has collaborated with Plastic Oceans Mexico, which is a part of an international organization working to minimize plastic pollution in the ocean. In March of 2020, she began collaborating with Protect Our Planet Pop movement on their new initiative, Pop Ocean, which aims to educate, mentor, and support youth-led marine conservation projects. Anna has participated as both speaker and organizer of events and activities to raise awareness on global environmental issues, including the International Sustainability Congress at her university and the World Sustainable Development Forum in 2020, where she presented the perspective of her youth on the urgent need for climate action. Anna was recently awarded the Youth Medal of Merit by Mexico City's Congress for her record in fostering climate change awareness and instilling the idea that individual commitment to action is a powerful force for change. She has gained, through her work and experience, the capacity to understand the youth perspectives on global environment challenges that we're facing. We welcome you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Nitya, and thank you everyone who's connected. Give me one second. Thank you everyone who's connected and listening to the stories of the youth, because I think everyone has a really different story, and it's amazing how you can connect to one more closely depending on your journey, right? And it's also amazing to hear Joni and Hasik and all these super young people acting from a really young age. And I think of myself when I was 12 or 14 or 16, and I can't imagine doing all the amazing work you guys are doing. So congratulations. So to talk a little bit about how I started getting involved in climate action and ocean activism, I want to talk about how I realized the problem was huge and there was an urgent need to address it. It was 1 week where school in Mexico was canceled. We were all staying at home, and I decided to watch every possible documentary on the Ocean Conservancy and climate action. And when I was done, I realized now I have all this information. I can't believe on one side I didn't know about this, and on the other I have all this information. What am I gonna do about it? I can't just sit here in my house like nothing happened, right? This week was like the turning point in my career as an ocean advocate. And I think it was one phrase specifically for a documentary where the people who were making the documentary asked this older guy, like, hey, as a finishing sentence, just give advice to the youth. And he said, do everything you can, because when you reach my age, and if you feel like you didn't do everything that was in your hands, you're gonna feel a lot of regret. So that was the phrase that struck me the most, and that was the moment I decided to get involved in my school's eco club. So that was my first approach. I decided to join this environmental club in Ibero called Cambio, and through it, I had the connection with Plastic Oceans. I helped organize a little forum in my university, and that's how I started getting involved. And 6 months later, I was collaborating with Plastic Oceans Mexico as their special events coordinator. Through my school also is how I met the pop movement when we invited them to participate in a congress we organized. And after meeting them, I had the chance to go with our group of Cambio to represent our projects in the festival of youth projects. And that's how I started getting more and more involved. So what I want to say with this message is how every one little thing led to another. So I think my 3 key points of this story is everything is made by little steps. It's not one big step one day to another that you become an advocate, or one day to another that you're changing the world. It's little steps that you can't be afraid to take. On the other side, don't be afraid to approach people who are already involved. They're people who really need the help and really want the help, and you'll always be welcome to join the movement. And I think one of the most important ones is don't look away from things that make you uncomfortable. Act on them. It's easier to, for example, you're scrolling on social media and you see a video of a turtle being strangled by a net. It's easier to scroll down and forget you ever saw it. But it's better to learn about what's happening. Why is this turtle like this? Why is there so much trash in the ocean? What's happening? And that way, little by little, you start getting more motivated to get involved. So now that I've talked about how I got involved in ocean activism, I want to talk a little bit more about the water crisis in Mexico. Because as Danny was saying, Mexico is one of the Mexico cities specifically, it's one of the cities that's at most risk. They expect that in less than 30 years, we're gonna run out of water. I'm 24, so I think about my baby cousins, and by the time they're my age, the situation is gonna be much worse. So I can't imagine them living in such a stressful situation where they'll turn on the faucet and they won't have running water, or they'll know about this approaching day 0, and this will cause them so much pain and so much regret of not acting before. So in Mexico, I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago, we actually had a week without water because there were some problems in our water system. And I think that was my first insight to the gravity of the issue. That was when I really realized, like, this is a real problem. We are not often exposed to it because we live in this big city where we always get water. But that's when I realized, like, it's time to act. We can't really just stay sitting there and not do anything about it. And that's when I started thinking back a little and saying, as a chemical engineer, throughout the university, we learned to calculate different processes. And for all these processes, we would calculate how much cooling water was needed, right? So we would get this enormous amount of, of liters of water that would be needed for a simple process. And I never gave it a second thought until that day came, right? So I would get like the result of the calculation we were making, and I never really thought about what that meant. You know, we were calculating for one product for a production of one day, and the amount of water was impressive. So that's when I started thinking about, like, hey, this is a lot of water, you know? Everything we have has water contained in it, right? So a chocolate, a soda, the clothes you wear, everything. So I think that's when it really started to hit me that the importance of consuming responsibly and consuming less are not only closely attached to our carbon footprint, but they're also really attached to our water footprint, which is super important that we start addressing now. Because if we fail to do so, this precious resource will keep disappearing from many places, and the people who will suffer at first will be the ones with the least resources. So this is, as well as climate justice and climate change, it's unfair, right? So as we stand from a point of privilege, living in cities, having access to the internet, having access to all this information, we can't give it for granted. We need to use this power to demand change. So I hope you use this little intro to the subject for 3 things. For one, starting consuming responsibly and learning about how much water is contained in every little product that you have. On the other is learning more about the issue. It's really interesting, and the more you learn about, the more motivated you are to act, and also to spread the word. And my last is to demand proper water management, because most of the issues are closely related to how the water is managed and not only to how much water we have. So that would be all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Now we have with us Luciana Verstegi. Luciana is an environmental youth leader. Due to her activism, she was invited to the international event of UNFCCC as an observer and youth delegate of Mexico at the COP25 and COI 15 in Madrid. She is also the UN SDGs I'm sorry, just a second. She's also the UNSDG's Youth State Coordinator, being engaged with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Youth Mexico, the Plant for the Planet Organization, and the STSN Youth MX Network. Currently, she coordinates and is the contact point of a UN initiative, the YOUNGO International Oceans Voice Working Group, of 119 plus youth from 38 plus countries representing 4 of the ocean's regions. This working group focuses on the consolidation of an international action group that supports ocean conservation and initiatives, and will be enabled to progress towards the training of the next decision makers. Through her background, Luciana is working at a Danish consultancy, Plura. She is in charge of outreaching young professionals and connecting them with the alliances, creating impactful opportunities for both. We welcome you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I hope you can get inspired with my words. And first of all, I really hope everyone is safe at home with the ones that you love. Unfortunately, this weekend has been really tough for me. This Sunday, I lost my grandmother. And she was a powerful, brave, and strong woman. And something I learned from her was conviction. If you don't have conviction in your beliefs, there will not be any existing reason of trying. But if you have conviction of your identity and power to your thoughts, that will give you the power to really do something and make a difference in what you have to do. Having conviction means to change your impossibilities to a possibility and doing extraordinary. Therefore, today I'm going to talk about how I got to get into the theme of the ocean, and how I started coordinating a group of 120 people from all around the world without ever imagining it. And I think it's something that you cannot think in the future that you will do, but you are doing it. First of all, I could possibly say that my journey started since I got invited to the COP as a youth delegate of Mexico, but no, my journey started since I was 9 years old, and I was a really sportive person, and I played badminton. And also I got to national, international, and continental competitions. And let me tell you that since then, I get to know what was the meaning of responsibility, compromise, and action. And most of all, love of what I'm doing. And I thought I was going to play badminton my whole life, but unfortunately, one day I hurt my wrist and never played badminton ever after. And I didn't know I was going to get passion to something else the same way I was with the sport. And until I found out that I can really make a difference, not only with the people I'm with, but I can make a difference all around the world, or just by little step, as says Anna. After I hurt my wrist, a lot of therapy happened. I decided to occupy my time through different things, and I entered to an NGO that is called Plant for the Planet. And I worked there, help with different activities, planting trees, helping with the conservation of natural spaces. And one day of October, I received a particular mail from the United Nations that I was being invited as an observer representing Plant for the Planet at the Conference of the United Nations of the Climate Change. Something important to say is that I always wanted to be part of the United Nations, and I want to be the Secretary of the General Secretary of the United Nations one day. And after I received that mail, I decided to do something. In that moment, I didn't have the enough resources, economical resources, to go to the event. So what I did is that I started spreading interviews, and I started creating a video. In that video, I share with all the people. And there is the moment that you can see how people is needed of good news, how people is needed of good actions, of good people, of people that inspires. And that was inspiring me so much. And one day I was in a radio interview, and I say, well, I need economical support for the airplane, and also because I'm not old enough to travel by myself. I need to take my mom. So I was searching for my mom and myself. And well, the people say like, okay, I will give you 100 pesos. And they were like, yes, please. It doesn't matter what amount. Little by little, I achieved all the amount. And one day, one person called me and said like, hey, I want to help you. And his name is Hector. I want to help you, and I want to help you with the airplane. And I say, okay, fine. And he said, okay, but first you need to have an interview. So I got with him, we got the interview, and something so impressive that happened is that he is right now my advisor in the group that I'm coordinating. So before telling that about that group, I want to tell you like the moment that I arrived to the COP, I found out that I was a lot of people, a lot of youth activists doing something all around the world. And I didn't thought I was the only one, but I didn't knew a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. And I was really amazed of all the people and the conviction they have, all the things they were thinking about and how they transmit it to the other people. So I also see a lot of people and a lot of adults that were crying in the conference saying like, every time my city passes through a hurricane, everything is destroyed and I don't know what to do. So in one hand, I have the people, the youth activists that is always working, always passionate about. And the other hand, you can see people that is really, really sad and really preoccupied, really worried about what is happening in their city and in the country and all around the world, and is not doing what it should do. So I decided to really create an impact in something, but I really didn't know in what. After one day, I was invited in a panel, and then I started saying, okay, I live near a coast zone, and I get to know that 6 million people, more or less 600 million people live near a coast zone, and I'm one of them, and I'm vulnerable of the effects of the climate crisis. And I said, okay, this is my plan, this is my journey. I will really get to know this, and I will be in the service of the ocean. That day is when I started to say and to notice that is the moment to act. So I started sending messages, and in the ocean working group that we started creating plans, and I started talking to people like, hey, we need to do something for the ocean. Let's do it. Let's work. And through 3 months that we have right now, we are now 120 people working towards the ocean and represent 38 countries from all around the world. That's amazing. Yesterday we have a conference, and our first project is to create an impact and incidence in a space from Spain that is Mar Menor. So it's really contaminated, and that will be our first project. And to conclude, what I want to say, like, have conviction of what you want to do. Never doubt that you are not doing something, because your time is perfect, and your time of doing what you should do is gonna be yours. So never let other people say that you're too young to do things, because you're capable enough to do whatever you want and do the goodness for the whole world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all of you. I would now like to hand the stage over to Dr. Ash Pachori.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nitya. And I just wanted to start off by saying this has been incredibly inspirational. I think each one of you has the most beautiful stories, and truly moving. And for everyone who's listening, I think your messages have been so powerful, and I hope everybody here who's part of this and has a chance to listen feels that really every drop literally counts, and all of us have a role to play, and we can really make it happen if we come together. This would be something that would be incredibly powerful and impactful, and each one of your stories really exemplifies that. So I just want to thank you all so much. This has been absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, I just could keep listening on. I know we had a sort of keep with time, but you know, really, we could probably have a day for each one and still not be able to finish. But I did want to say that we're very grateful we have had this opportunity to listen in. We also have a few minutes for questions. What we wanted to suggest was that for anybody in the audience who might want to ask questions, if you could drop your questions in chat, please, and we'll definitely try and get to your questions. And while we wait to hear from you, we had a question each actually for our panelists, and wish to ask you if you could take a minute, please, to respond. We'd love to hear your thoughts and perspectives and just some additional ideas that you might have to share with us as you inspire us such a great deal. So I wanted to ask Daniela, if I may first. Daniela, what is your take to addressing the water crisis and ensuring the availability of potable water for all populations? And specifically, if I could ask you to think about what tools you think youth would need to take action on this issue. I know you've exemplified how Mexico City is one that definitely is a city that's at risk, but we'd love to hear your thoughts about this issue and particularly what young people can do and how, please. Thank you.
I'll try to answer it under a minute. I think that the world is moved by money. That is a reality. And there is an underpricing of water. It is not considered, it doesn't take into account the social or environmental costs that are linked to actually accessing it and transporting it. So there has to be, there needs to be a creation of policies and institutions that can give it an economic value, and that it can really be treated as a precious resources that it truly is, because there are so many innovations and there's a lack of investing tremendously. And honestly, it's just, but if they don't have investment, they are temporary solutions. I'm sorry, they're temporary solutions. So I think that it really has to do with government management, right? Because it's subsidized and it's a human right. So yeah, I think that is very important. I've already passed my time, but people need to demand their government this, because we deplete our resources and then it is so much more costly to access another resource, right? So it's just investment in the long run. It's, I don't know, yeah. So we need to get in touch with our governments and demand actual water management. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, you underscore the whole issue of advocacy being an important part of it. And I think youth taking lead in this is really critical, because we need to start to demand the kind of change that we need on so many fronts, including government action, in order to be able to support and facilitate. And certainly a tool would be, you know, the voice of young people and certainly action, but advocacy is important. So I sincerely appreciate that, Daniela, and thank you so much for sharing. Your story is truly inspirational, and I love the honesty and, you know, the simplicity, and yet it's so powerful and so inspirational. So thank you very much for sharing that. I'm gonna request Joni and also Luciana, if I may, please, to give us your perspectives to this question, if you would agree. And the question is, you know, given your you know, your intense and prolific engagement in this field, particularly as leaders, I would like to ask you, you know, how do you achieve the balance that you need to, I know, to strike, you know, to be able to do all the work and, you know, keep with your responsibilities at school and then at work? How do you strike a balance, and, you know, how is that playing out for you? Would love to hear your perspectives on this. So I'm looking forward to maybe Joni, if you wanted to go first, and then to Luciana. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, so I basically try to make it part of my normal everyday life. I try to involve water activism, like conserving water. And also, while in school, I like to participate in different groups, like an eco club that allows us to work together and build ideas that can be better for our environment. And I just kind of make it part of my everyday life, so it's almost normal to me.
Fantastic. That's incredible. And I love that, because it's just so central to everything that you do, that it's a part of your being. Joni, this is really very special. So thank you so much. Your voice counts, and all that you think, feel, and act is really important. So sincerely appreciate it. I'm gonna ask, thank you so much. We're so thrilled to be able to work with you, Joni, and you inspire all of us. I'm very happy to hear you, and I also wanted to ask Luciana if you'd give us your take on how this plays out for you, Luciana. Thank you.
Sure. First of all, I'm not alone. I always have the support of my family. And another thing that is really important is that I have 3 books for example, one is for homework, another one is for all the meetings I have, and the other one is for the daily, like the work that I need to do every day. So, I mean, I have a lot of order in what I have to do. And the same as Joni, I really appreciate like the moment I'm doing right now and trying to really concentrate and doing my best in each moment, and really consider that I'm not doing a lot of things, but I'm really putting myself in a lot of things. I think having like different perspective of what you are doing make you feel more comfortable and more relaxed than think that is a lot of work. So I think that it will be my response. And if anyone wants to do a lot of things, you can do it. You have the possibility to do it. Just put a notebook, put all the things that you have to do, and try to do it.
That is wonderful, fantastic, and what a great message from both of you. Really want to thank you, because for everybody out there who's wondering, there's no way for me to be able to cope with everything. It's a matter of course, the support counts, and I'm really grateful, Luciana, that you've got your family, to back you up. But at the same time, you built up a great community, and you have all their support, and of course, the organization counts for a lot. So yes, and we have a great comment from Jamila as well. Yeah, it's really important to be able to strike that balance so you don't burn yourself out, and I really appreciate that, because it's so important. As long as we're sort of keeping everything in proportion, we can make it work. So this is truly a valuable advice for everyone at every stage, and thank you very much for sharing. I also wanted to ask, thank you so much. Really, I think incredibly practical and extremely valuable, and of course most inspirational. Both of you, all of you, thank you so much. I wanted to take this opportunity also to say, Hazik, it's such a great privilege. We're absolutely thrilled to have this time together with you, and I hope it's the start of lots more. I'm sure it is. But I wanted to ask you, Hazik, with the amazing work that you're doing, specifically your perspective on what you think can be done to scale up more innovation in the area of sustainable development, and also to make it suitable to to different contexts around the world. What is your take on this, Hazik? We'd love to hear, because you're definitely a pioneer in the field, and we're very excited to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So this pandemic has put the world on a pause, and I guess like we need to relook our actions through the lens of sustainability. So we are seeing an increasing number of innovations, yes, but we are also failing to see the true impact, right? There could be several reasons for this, ranging from businesses failing to see these as viable economic options, or governments and institutions not prioritizing the adoption of sustainable innovations. So, firstly, I think that sustainability needs to be incorporated into the education system. The importance of sustainability should be made interdisciplinary. It's integrating with all areas of study, so students will be able to get will be able to apply it in other fields. Um, it will also sensitize students and equip them with the necessary tools to take sustainable action. We also need to increase the scope of monetization for such innovations. So when we developed Airvis, the ship, our biggest obstacle was funding, which we are still working towards overcoming. Startup innovations also need to be institutionalized. Another step can be the further development of incubation and specialized accelerator labs in universities that focus on sustainable innovations. So, right, we also need more, lastly, we need more organizations and countries to align with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So, so intergovernmental trade agreements can help bridge the innovation gaps, so that innovations are not just restricted to developed nations, but find their way to developing and underdeveloped countries. So in summary, the focus on education, national and international regulations, and the incentivization would go a long way to scale up sustainable innovations that adapt to suit different contexts around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I think that you have some fantastic points to share with us. I wanted to thank you, Hasik, for your perspective on this, and I hope that we will be able to mainstream some of these issues and institutionalize them through education. I know there are questions in the chat box. We're out of time, unfortunately, but I did want to take this opportunity to thank everyone. Each one of your stories has been hugely inspirational, and please feel free to drop your contacts in chat and for any questions to be responded to. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Karina and FXB for this absolutely phenomenal opportunity to be able to be part of the climate pods and to talk about these really important stories. But I wanted to say that the approach has been phenomenal. Just the storytelling has been so moving and inspirational. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to ask Karina if you could help us close out and thank our panelists and the entire POP family for this incredible time together and for helping make this happen. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Ash, and thank you to all the incredible panelists. What inspiring journeys. We got to travel all over the world through your stories. So it was really, and just really hearing from such a wide range of stories and experiences and perspectives was really incredible. And I think, we already know this, but no matter where we are, this is something that binds all of us together, both the crisis and the innovation that comes from young people and your fresh perspectives and ideas and projects. And so, I want to be like you when I grow up. So you guys are incredible. And I think most of the probably adults or older people in the audience feel that way. So thank you so much to everyone. This was incredible. We're going to take a little break and we will convene our next panel. We will reconvene at 11:30 for a panel on global water challenges and local solutions and hear from more young people from around the world about the water challenges in their communities. So please, take a water break, coffee, maybe a quick lunch, dinner, depending where you are. We will keep the Zoom video on. So, you can sign out and sign back in, or just leave your computer on, and we're gonna start again at 11:30. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
And please
Bye.
stay
really
and
Thank you so
appreciate it.
the
much.
POP family if you can attend the other talks. They're gonna be really great as well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It's so incredible. And Jerome, thank you for your question. I will introduce you via email, but thank you for asking and sincerely appreciate it. This has been absolutely invaluable.